with John Osborne, who is the Horse Racing Ireland Director of Equine Welfare and Bloodstock. I hope you can hear me now, John.
Yeah, I can hear you, Nick, yes.
Thank you. It's great to have you on the show. I put to you the proposition earlier that Lee Mottershead said that everybody outside the industry must know that everybody in the industry is united in not only condemning the acts we've seen in the last week, but portraying the best positive image for the sport. How do you respond to that?
I think everybody has condemned the image and the actions that go behind it. I think Gordon was the first to come out and put his hands up. So, I mean, we would agree with that. It was unacceptable and, you know, disappointing and all those words. But, you know, we have... you know, I spoke to you last Monday, and I mean, my reaction was that, you know, it doesn't reflect, it isn't a fair reflection on the people who look after these horses. And, you know, the Elliott Yard is one of which we're proud because, you know, of the way that they have produced their horses over and over again. Like, his statistics are incredible, his horses perform to a very high standard, they look immaculate. He has a staff which are the envy of many other yards in terms of their enthusiasm and their skills. So, you know, there's an awful lot of pluses here that are not reflected by that photograph.
John, what worries us and what worries me this morning is when I look at a headline that's in the Daily Telegraph today. You and I both know that all those horses in Gordon Elliott's yard are looked after brilliantly. Henrietta Knight was on this programme last year. I asked her of all the yards she'd been to in Europe, which one she was most impressed with. Without hesitation, she said Gordon Elliott. And I pick up the Daily Telegraph this morning and I read the headline, Gordon Elliott loophole, because he's still allowed to be heavily involved in the training of his horses at Cullentra, even though he's suspended, proves racing, quote, does not care about animals. What can we do as a sport to respond to those sort of allegations? What do we need to do now to move forward out of this?
Well, I mean, everything, somebody said that there's winning and opportunities to learn. And this is obviously an opportunity for us all to learn. I read a very interesting site called Black Box Thinking, where, you know, the airline industry learns from the mistakes of others. So we all share the negatives and we learn from them and get better for having come through that test, if you like. You know, this is, you know, perfect is a very high standard to set yourself. And sometimes I think that we in the industry feel that, oh, we're under unfair criticism or unjustifiable scrutiny, or people are setting standards that are far too high for us. But if you ask anybody in the restaurant business what it's like in the aftermath of one bad meal, I mean, it can be catastrophic for an enterprise, you know. So, like, we're not alone in being set very high standards. And in our situation, I suppose, we have a duty of care to the animals at the centre of the sport. And I suppose that's why, you know, I make the case that, you know, our sport is the second most popular sport in Ireland after Gaelic games. You know, football is a close third, and the Premier League attracts a lot of attention in Ireland. But the point to make is that those fan bases are very devoted to their sport and disinterested in other sports, perhaps. Whereas we have the unusual situation of having people who are passionate about the sport, and then we also have people who are, you know, actually object to it, if you like. So that's an unusual situation for a sport to find itself in. But it sets the bar even higher because those external people are asking us to make sure we deliver on our duty of care to the horses. And, like, you know, not to get too buzz phrasey about it, you know, but I mean, one thing we've done is we've been very good at identifying the best horse. We need to get better at what is best for the horse. And that's a sort of thinking that we need to evolve. And this is an evolution. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It's like a culture shift within the industry where, you know, the horse comes first and everything else is a byproduct of that. But it's still a game where, you know, it's not, you know, the winner is celebrated. But I think all the participants must also be celebrated too. That's a tough task.
I felt very uncomfortable this week with some of, as Lee described it, some of the sort of binary arguments put forward on this, and the idea that you either are backing Gordon Elliott or you're in some way trying to attack him. Would you agree with me that this is much more nuanced than that?
Well, I mean, you know what it takes to be a racehorse trainer. It's an incredibly sophisticated task to be a people manager, a horse husbander, a businessman, a media professional. All these tasks are asked of somebody who, and Gordon would say it himself, he didn't go to finishing school. It's a very sophisticated role for somebody. And obviously, one of the great take-homes from it is Gordon's willingness to engage with the process, to get better from it. He has promised to come back better, and we believe him. And I think that's testament to most of the successful entrepreneurs in any walk of life, that they learn from their mistakes and they get better from them. And I think this is a classic opportunity for the entire industry to learn from this. And I don't blame the messenger. I don't blame the camera. I don't blame the image as much as, the behaviors behind it are what we need to focus in on. What is acceptable? And as I say, what's right by the horse, as much as we can do that, bearing in mind that sometimes, it's a difficult sport because they're living, breathing animals.
So what you're saying is, do we just need to change our approach culturally? Do all of us need to look at ourselves and think, right, how do we look at horses? How do we feel about them? How do we treat them in life and treat them in death?
Yeah, and I think we ourselves need to get better around that subject before we can even engage with communicating with the so-called outside world on the subject. People... we know that people are devoted to their animals. We know that they love them dearly. We know that people choose this game as their career, for reasons other than money. It's beyond that. Obviously, people have to live and put groceries on the table, but it's a deep felt thing. But we still have to think differently in the safety record that it had 20 years ago. And, there were those who at the time of the change felt that hard hats and yellow vests and steel toe cap boots were an inconvenience and a sign of weakness, and 20 years later, the safety record in construction is much, much improved. It's not, and that's the path we should set ourselves on. That we engage with the horses in ways where we learn from what goes on. And one of the things we'd like to see is that thing of data sharing, so that, everyone learns from the other guy. It's a feature of lots of enterprises, such as the All Blacks, and the airline industry, where, people learn from the other guy, even if they're in competition with them. That's a difficult culture to establish because obviously trainers are very competitive one with the other. But they're also bumping into some of the same issues. And wouldn't it be wonderful if they all learned from the other guy's mistakes before they made the same mistake themselves? And that comes down to track surfaces, the way they feed the animals, how they exercise them, and all those issues. It would be wonderful if everyone learned from the other person, which happens in lots of other walks of life.
John, thank you very much indeed. John Osborne, the Horse Racing Ireland Director of Equine Welfare and Bloodstock.